I definitely can't pretend to have this whole music production thing figured out. But one thing I do think I have a decent handle on is having an incredibly high amount of creative output, which I think is really important. Quantity of songs often leads to quality of songs because the more songs you make, the more likely you are to hit on something truly special. Creating repeatedly means you're practicing more, which means you're getting better faster. And for a medium like YouTube, having frequent and regular output is a great way to build an audience and keep people engaged. So I place a high value on putting stuff out frequently and making a ton of music. And now that I've graduated, I work full-time in engineering, so I can finally make this video. And while civil engineering is a career that I am very passionate about and do want to become excellent at, I also want to become excellent at making music and doing YouTube. Even if I'm not trying to do it full-time, I want to have output that is equivalent to someone who is full-time. So in today's video, I want to talk about ways that I've found extremely helpful for becoming more productive as an electronic music producer. And these will be especially helpful if you're working full-time, but also should be helpful if you're really trying to pursue electronic music full-time. The first thing I want to talk about is getting more out of your music production sessions, because it is easy to sometimes find yourself sitting down to work on music and not really having any ideas and kind of messing around for a while and end up feeling like that whole session was futile and you wasted your time, which is frustrating. And also, those are gonna happen inevitably. That's just part of the creative process. But here are a few things I found to make these sessions more effective. First of all, get a change of location. And of course, right now, when this video is being released, this comes with a ton of asterisks because you need to be safe and need to be keeping others safe. For me, before 2020, I would often go to a cafe and bring my laptop or a music making app on my phone or a portable music production device like the Novation Circuit and make music in a public place. It's surrounded by people, there's lots of activity, but it's in a place where it's like socially acceptable to loiter. Maybe I've got coffee with me. I've got a view, maybe downtown in an area that I don't live. Being in that new location, for me at least, is incredibly creatively stimulating. Often it leads to better focus, which is backed up by research. I'll link an article below that talks about how a change of location can improve your focus. And being in a cool location often just makes me feel more inspired and makes me more likely to come up with cool musical ideas quickly. Plus, intentionally dropping money on a coffee or at least going somewhere else to work on music can trigger your brain into productivity mode because you intentionally went somewhere to do a specific thing. Once again, in 2020, be sure to wear a mask anywhere, even if you're outdoors, and stay outdoors, don't loiter inside a building, and stay away from people. This can definitely be done depending on where you live and depending on how safe that is, but please be careful when implementing this until the nightmare that 2020 has brought upon us is properly over. But even then, there are plenty of places outdoors that you can go away from people safely, and I highly recommend it. It's been tremendously helpful for me. This piece of advice ties nicely into my second piece of advice, which is make full use of your lunch breaks if you work a full-time job, especially if, like me, you work an 8 to 5 and have an hour lunch break. For me, these days, I'll actually just bring lunch, and I'll bring something that's easy to make and easy to consume, and also this ties into just me tricking myself into eating healthier. I'll often bring a smoothie to work that has a bunch of fruits and vegetables and protein in it, and that's my lunch. And I can just drink that around 11:30 while still working and not detracting from my work in any way. And that leaves my whole hour lunch break freed up. And I use that for music production more often than not. By the end of the day, typically my brain is shot, I'm exhausted, I'm not necessarily in the headspace to do anything creative. So using my lunch breaks for music production allows me to take advantage of a time when I've not expended all my mental energy, I'm still motivated, I'm still feeling somewhat energetic, and I'll often do exactly what I said with a change of location. I'll walk to a nearby cafe, sit outside away from people, and maybe I'll try to write a melody, design a few sounds, come up with a song structure for a song that I have in progress, or otherwise chip away at a bigger musical project. So by the end of a week, just 1 hour a day, that can add up. And you can definitely make a whole polished song in a week by doing this, and maybe put in a bit more time on a weekend to really make the final push and get the thing finished. Once again, work on a laptop, work on a Groovebox, even just write melodies on an app on your phone if you don't have any of that kind of stuff. This is a really valuable time to get some creativity out, and often I find it's really rejuvenating for my work day as well. They kind of feed into each other. If I've done something that's incredibly different from my work stuff and I've done something that's creatively inspiring, I'll come back to my real job feeling better and ready to take on new challenges. Doing this incredibly regularly also leads to my next piece of advice, which is build up a stockpile of ideas. Creating from a completely blank canvas or blank DAW can be difficult, but creating from something already existing and using that as a jumping off point can often be much easier and a lot quicker to get you into the creative flow. Which is why a lot of people will say go on Splice or Loop Masters and find a loop or a sample and build something around that. That's one effective way to do it, but if you want to take this even further and not rely on someone else's creativity, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there's the inherent risk of using a splice loop that someone else has already used it and then people will call you out on it. So if you are regularly taking time to just tinker and try to come up with song ideas or sounds or anything like that that can be used to spark a track, eventually you'll build up a stockpile of song ideas that you can start to pull from anytime you find yourself with time to make music but no ideas. I literally have a few folders on my computer full of WAV files, MIDI files, and Reaper DAW files. Things like chord progression and melody ideas, songs I want to try sampling, drum patterns, all that kind of stuff is just waiting there for me to dip into anytime I need ideas now. And that can often make a creative session much more effective and much more productive. Plus, the more you stockpile ideas, the more that you're gonna be able to pick out the very best ones and kind of let the ones that aren't that good kind of just die. And maybe you have them there as a backup if you need them, but being able to make a ton of stuff and then pick out only the best will lead to not only more frequent output, but also higher quality output. A few other scattered ideas that can help you have higher output that when all combined can make a big impact. Have templates. If you ever catch yourself doing the same rote task more than say 3 times, I want you to immediately think to yourself, how can I automate this? So set up DAW templates and set up folders and processes that will allow you to automate rote tasks or make them a whole lot quicker. Also, I don't think there's any shame in paying people to get you unstuck on something. I would try to not rely on this too much because you want to be able to build up your own skills, but there are a couple of cases where I've got a really good song idea and I've got the song to a place that I'm happy with, but I am just struggling to get this mix to sound right. In that case, once I've spent a ton of time by myself and I still can't get the mix quite right, I'll hire someone on Fiverr to mix it for me. And I'll leave an affiliate link down below, and it'll probably give you some kind of perk and help me out as well to a couple of my favorite folks for doing mixing and mastering on Fiverr. They're inexpensive, but very high quality for what you get. And I think there's definitely no shame as long as it's not having someone replace the creative process in doing this. And to be clear, I mix and master pretty much 100% of my own stuff, but I've used this in a few select cases where I've gotten really stuck. And finally, I've put together a playlist of videos that give you even more specific ways that you can be more productive. Stuff like how to quickly and effectively finish your songs, and a bunch of other stuff like that from both me and other people on YouTube who do productivity related stuff that I think are really helpful. So click that in the description or click that up over here, because that is it for today's video. Hopefully I earned your like on this one, and if you have any other pieces of advice for staying productive, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with another video in a little bit. Peace!